Hey, everybody! From Salt Lake City, Utah, the crossroads of the West.
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
The podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I am Chris Lemon, in for Dan Beecher, who is off sailing or on a sailboat.
Sailing away somewhere.
Yeah,
I know.
Like an Enya song.
And coming up on today's show, on the second half of the show, we're going to be talking about something that happened at the most recent BYU graduation ceremony. Their valedictorian came out as gay during his little speechy thing. So, isn't that a thing?
Wow, I'm sure some heads popped off.
Well, I love the video because it's like there's this like pregnant pause from the audience, and then people are like, "Yeah."
If I applaud right now, will I get called into my bishop's office?
And we'll talk about whether or not you would have been coming up. But first, Chris, thanks for being here. Thanks for filling in.
Dude, I am so excited to be here. It's been a while since I was here last, probably 5 months or so.
Probably.
It's really good to be back.
Yeah.
I'm super happy and stoked and smiley about it.
It's always lovely to have you. So
thanks, Frank.
And so coming up first, I have a story about, unfortunately, in Iran, the Ayatollah, the Grand Ayatollah Nasser Makamram Shirazi. That was good, right?
Yeah. That's how you say it.
He has issued a fatwa, Chris.
Oh.
On a very important topic.
So a fatwa is really like a call for execution, like a call for...
I think it's a call for action more than anything.
Really? Because if you have a fatwa called against you, that means that anybody who is devout Muslim can kill you.
I think the fatwa would say, kill so-and-so.
Oh.
Whereas a fatwa, I think, is more just sort of a statement or a call to action.
Okay.
I believe that's what it means.
So it's like a memo, and then the contents of the memo would be
the action
kill
items.
That person. Right. Okay, got it.
would be kill. No, so in this case, the fatwa actually is banning Iran's version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Oh. Why?
Because
that's so sad.
Because as conservative critics in the nation have called it, it is essentially a halal casino.
Halal.
Yeah. Can you believe it?
What do they mean by that? I don't even know what that means.
Well, they mean that, like...
Because isn't halal, like, when you eat right, like, when you eat according to...
Food that's halal would be sort of accepted food that's prepared correctly.
It's like kosher for Muslims.
Basically what they're saying is you've taken this idea of gambling and you've cleaned it up.
Oh, okay.
Right? And you've put it on our airwaves.
That's so stupid. I just got it. Oh, halal. Okay.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. So, anyway...
I was slow on the uptake on that one. No, because it's fucking stupid. That doesn't make sense.
Apparently, it's not the only game show that's getting canceled due to this fatwa. There's some other ones that have been on the air for a while that are all being considered games of chance. And here's the deal. I mean, there's some chance involved here, but I mean, you have to answer these questions correctly, right?
Right.
There's
skill involved.
Skill. This is not just rolling dice.
That's not a game of
this
chance.
Isn't pulling the lever on a slot machine.
Because you have to know the answer.
You have to know the answer, or you have to phone a friend.
So it's more of a contract than a game of chance.
Yeah, It's they could have called it apparently "Who Wants to Be a Billionaire" because the prize, the top prize in the show is 1 billion. Iranian rials, which is the equivalent of about $30,000. So not quite the same prize that they would have gotten, on the American or British version of the show. But, yeah.
But I'm still sure that there are plenty of people in Iran that would be really stoked to get 30 grand, right?
Oh, no kidding. Huh. Yeah.
Just saying.
I would think that the Ayatollah is just upset because he was never picked as a phone a friend.
Do you think that he would have enough secular information in his head to actually do okay? on that show?
I don't know.
Actually, maybe he.
I bet they
knows.
have religion.
Maybe he's like
topics.
really good on like pop culture and like he's like a big Britney Spears fan
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah,
I'm like,
probably.
No, I could
Yeah.
nail all those questions.
That makes total sense to me. I'm sure that's true. Anyway, what you got, Chris?
So I wanted to talk about, and you and Dan have talked about this before on the show, but it's that app in Saudi Arabia that men use to track their wives or daughters, right? Mm-hmm. So the app is called Absher.
Yeah.
And you can actually download it from Google Play and Apple.
Right.
Like
right now, if you wanted to.
Yes. And so
if you have a wife or daughter that you want to control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surveil. Really, so this is a surveillance app.
God.
And
do you attach like their phone to it? Like how does it
I'm
is
not
it like find your
doubly
friend?
sure.
But
Yes, but
you can't turn it
yes,
off.
and so you can know where the person is. But also there's something a little more insidious that happens here. That the woman's passport is actually attached to this app.
Yeah, right.
So if she wants to leave the country,
Right.
she needs the permission of the man in her life, right? Either her father or her husband.
Her guardian.
Right?
Yeah.
So there are stories that women have actually been... Well, let me get there. So this is written in The Guardian by a woman named Catherine Bennett, and she just talks about how recently there's been a surge in 5-star ratings of this app. And people are just talking about how well it works for controlling their wives. But the issue, there's some issues with it as well. Because previously to this app, if a woman wanted to leave Saudi Arabia, she actually had to get documentation and paperwork, actual paperwork that she would take with her to the airport, and then she could leave the country with this permission, right? It would, I assume, I'm not sure, but I assume it would have to be signed by her husband or her father. And then the Saudi government would give her permission to leave.
Right.
But with this app, what's happening is that some women are escaping by getting a hold of their their slave owners' phone, and then disabling the app so that they can actually get on a plane or leave a border point,
get out of the country.
So, interestingly enough, this app has actually made it a little easier for some women to get out of Saudi Arabia than before, because now they don't.
Ironic.
Now they don't need the documents. They could just steal a phone or get into somebody's phone and change the.
Yeah, I think when we talked about it before, I think we talked about just sort of how sick of a concept this is.
It's gross,
and a couple times where women have gotten out. But yeah. So I think what's important about bringing up today is the fact that Google and Apple are
complicit,
hosting this app in their app stores.
Yeah, it's gross. It needs to end.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes me wonder, like, and the 5-star rating thing, that is disgusting.
Who's doing that?
Like, that is so gross.
Which also means that there's a media push. Somebody is pushing somewhere in Saudi Arabia to get people to go out and give more ratings for this.
It just makes me realize that if let's say Google had existed in the early 1800s in the United States, that there would be slave shops, right, with star ratings.
Yes,
right?
yes. Think about it.
And they'd just be like, no, we're just a platform.
Yeah, this platform. Yeah. And this app just helps me keep track of my slaves. But you know what? Here's then what I want to talk about, Frank. Like, let's say, I mean, that's such a shitty idea. Like, oh, no, we're just selling it, right? Like, we don't endorse it. We're just selling it. So, like, next week, I hear that, Target, they're going to start selling mustard gas.
Right.
I'm just kidding about that, of course. They're not. But what I'm saying is that, like, no, we're not going to be like, oh, Target, it's okay for you to sell mustard gas.
Because you're just the platform.
Right. You're just the middleman, right?
Right.
No.
You didn't make the stuff.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. But I bet they'd pick the brand of mustard gas that had the best packaging.
Oh, yeah.
It would just be the most adorable, cute little packaging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know.
Right.
It kind of gets up my craw a little because.
Well, it's disgusting when you see these. I think that we have this idea of like a lot of these modern technologies and these tools. We initially see them almost through utopian sort of eyes, right? It's like, oh, this future that we can have with this new technology. And then the reality starts settling in, which is, no, the tyrants and big corporations and whatnot, they will figure out how to use this technology for their gain as much as you're going to try to figure it out for your own. But they're going to find ways to limit rights. They're going to find ways to spy on us and track our information.
But fucking Google and Apple, both American companies, should not be complicit in this kind of human enslavement.
Google has a horrible track record in China. This doesn't surprise me at all, right? Like they've actually become active participants in the Great Firewall, right? Like they're fine with it. They're kowtowing quite literally to Chinese
They're
authorities just to get in there and make money, right?
It makes me really sick. And honestly, the app is disgusting. And if people in Saudi Arabia, like you had talked to me about this before we started the show, but in Saudi Arabia, citizens aren't viewed as citizens; they're viewed as prisoners.
Well, I mean,
they're viewed as a commodity of the government,
right? Yes,
yeah.
I mean, not literally, but yeah.
But they need permission to leave the country.
They do need permission to leave the country, which is disgusting. Yeah, and in a way that's different than just filing for a passport.
And so here's the thing: if Saudi Arabia wants to keep an app like this and encourage men to use this on women, then at least Google and Apple Play cannot be part of it, and they can find a different way in Saudi Arabia to get this on their phones. I don't know. It's just gross. It makes me sick. Sorry, your turn. Tell me something else to make me sick to my stomach, Frank.
Well, there's a school in the UK, in Birmingham, to be precise.
I like how you said that.
Yeah? Did I say it correctly?
I mean, I assume.
Well, it's not Birmingham.
Birmingham.
That's in Alabama.
Right. Birmingham.
I don't know. Anyway, there's a primary school, an elementary school, where that had been using a book called No Outsiders to teach about inclusion and specifically about LGBT rights. And just generally tolerance of all diverse groups, right? And that included, different races, gender, sexual identity, so forth and so on. Well, the school is in a predominantly Muslim neighborhood, and the parents have freaked the fuck out.
The predominantly Muslim parents.
The Muslim parents have signed a petition saying that 400 parents, predominantly of those 400 parents, it's predominantly Muslim, and they called for this school or this text to be dropped, and for this curriculum to be dropped, and now. The fact of the matter is that the UK Office for Standards in Education, which is, I guess, commonly called Ofsted, has cleared the book. They've cleared the school of any wrongdoing. In fact, they've praised the school's record on promoting tolerance, acceptance, and mutual respect.
So basically, this is a text that is encouraging people to be inclusive of all races, genders, sexual orientation,
right, everything,
religions.
But the sticking point has been the LGBTQ aspect of the curriculum. That's where the Muslim parents are losing their shit, basically. So
that's offensive.
Oh,
it's offensive to me just because from a group of people that has been marginalized. And viewed often as an outsider and as others,
right? To
just so quickly,
Chris, the moment any group gets in the majority,
and
it's just I think it automatically shifts.
It's called a hierarchy, which is a hierarchy that happens within marginalized groups, and then they find different groups to to discriminate against.
Oh, like gay men and
drag queens, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Huh.
So
that's funny.
I'm not saying it's right.
It's
I'm
just what happens.
It's what tends to happen in levels of a hierarchy. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate it. I welcome the interruption. Andrew Moffat, who's a teacher at the school, and also who has been shortlisted for a World's Best Teacher Award.
Oh, he sounds horrible.
Just the worst.
Making these kids learn about actual things
man.
and actual people in the world.
Yeah.
And talking about inclusion. Wow.
Yeah. He was threatened and targeted via a leaflet campaign, which also sounds terrifying to me. So many leaflets.
Oh, it's like the pillow, you know. You open the pillow and spread the feathers out into the street. You can try, but you can never go out and pick up all those feathers again. Did you ever hear that?
No.
Never mind.
Anyway, okay. Anyway, he was threatened and targeted. You know, I mean, his whole point is that this is the point is to challenge homophobia, right? Not promote homosexuality, but to challenge the homophobia.
But also, what's wrong with promoting homosexuality? I guess I don't understand that.
Well, I could yes, you were correct. In a perfect world, one should be able to promote any group,
right?
And say, yeah, no, this is great, and if you are, it's awesome, blah blah blah. But that's not a line that they're trying to cross. They're just trying to say, treat people who are different from you with respect.
It's even it's even more rudimentary than like what I'm talking about. It's even more basal than what I'm talking about.
This is more sort of, they're just trying to get tolerance,
right?
They're not working on acceptance, probably. They're just working on just being nice to the gay kids.
Right.
But also, like, it's a good message for the gay kids who are in that group, because it's good as the gay kid in a really conservative community to hear messages of acceptance, right?
Yes, well,
because they're not hearing it at home.
And you said that there were roughly 400 Muslim parents that had signed the petition.
Yeah, signed the petition, representing about 600 kids, and they actually had a day where they held all the kids home.
600 kids, roughly somewhere between 50 to 60 of them could possibly identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, questioning.
Oh yeah,
asexual.
Yeah.
So most likely, 7 to 10% of that population is queer anyway.
Right.
Or will identify as queer.
But not according to the parents. And that's what's important here.
Oh, that's interesting and sad.
Yeah.
So. A poor teacher. I mean...
he had to leave another school as well, basically over the same kind of issues, where he got into the school, he brought up this curriculum. I don't know if he's fully 100% responsible for introducing the curriculum or not. The story doesn't go into that, but it sounds like he's been instrumental in it.
In the United Kingdom, I mean, under the Magna Carta, right? Don't you have,
habeas corpus?
Well, and you have right to freedom of choice. You have right to religion. And this just brings up a whole other issue that I'm going to get into right here. That I'm so sick of the debate about LGBT people. Like, oh, are they choosing this? Do they become this? It's just so tired and exhausting. Because here's the thing. Like, let's even just say that queer people are choosing to be queer. Yeah. Isn't that a valid choice?
Sure, should be.
If you choose to be Muslim, isn't that a valid choice for someone?
They're not choosing that, Chris. They are being correct.
Actually, I would say that you choose your religion way more than you choose your sexual orientation.
Of course you do.
But
I
digress. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I mean, whatever. I just let me vent. God. What does it mean when an atheist takes the Lord's name in vain like that? God. Because I say it a lot, but it's not like I really believe in it.
Right. It's all the better.
It's just a turn of phrase.
Yeah. It's just an idiom.
I feel like I keep interrupting your story. Why don't you go?
No, I'm done.
That was a good one. It got me a little fired up.
I've been waiting for you to start.
Start my next one? My next one's a little heavy.
Oh, no, Chris.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a...
Do I need to top
It's a
off
bit of
on
a
my
boner
coffee
killer,
before we...
actually.
Oh, no.
It's from Psychology Today. It was written by a man named Joe Navarro, and it's entitled, Why Predators Are Attracted to Careers in the Clergy.
Please.
And, it's a pretty
Please tell us,
in-depth article. And
it's clear that they are.
Yes. And Joe Navarro hits all these touchstones about why a job as a clergy member is really good for people who are sexual predators or predators in general. And he talks about how earlier, I guess it was from a couple years ago, he had read an article called Which Professions Have the Most Psychopaths? And it had got him thinking about this and why in particular so many predators are drawn into being priests or bishops or clergy.
Right.
And he kind of went into an in-depth expose of this, using this article kind of as a base, and then he found these touchstones of ways in which predators are called, I guess,
right.
feel a calling into the church.
Oh God!
So, according to that article he had read, the position with the most psychopaths in it would be CEOs and executives. And then a little farther down the line is clergy.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. But, I mean, even like 10 years ago, we probably wouldn't have thought about predators flocking to the clergy. But now, I mean, in the past 10 years, what it's shown us is that we know for a fact that this is a profession, and it is a profession. Let's not fool ourselves.
Right.
That this is a profession where...
Well, I don't think we fool ourselves.
Right.
I think Catholics fool themselves.
And I'm not just talking about Catholics. I'm talking about Catholics and really any
ministry.
Yes, because and that's what this article says. It goes into detail about how this profession is kind of tailor-made for predators and how they really fit right in.
Wow.
So,
because I always would have thought, and always my sort of my theory is that perhaps an individual, as he is growing up, recognizes certain tendencies and impulses in himself, and he says, you know, where I should go into the clergy because that's a holy endeavor, and it's going to, and if there's anything I can do to get closer to God, that will help me. Not thinking about the choir boys necessarily.
I don't know. I may disagree. I actually think that they're...
I'm saying this is what I used to always think. This was my running theory, that it was like, and then they end up there and they're like, oh, well,
I might as well just rape these kids. Right?
Yeah.
But
basically.
I actually think it's more calculated.
Okay.
And I think that maybe some of these predators go into clergy with those kind of thoughts, or maybe it's more subconscious for them, but the fact remains that it is a perfect storm.
Right.
This profession is a perfect storm for what they're looking for.
Right.
And for example, like organizations provide convenient infrastructure for a predator to prey on people. And membership in this institution gives them a little bit of legitimacy, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Churches give predators ready and easy access to an identifiable pool of individuals. Religions give predators convenient access to find victims. And also think about this. Alliances are made, like among people in the clergy.
Okay.
Like fellow priests, fellow bishops, counselors, whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
And colleagues within this organization or church will tend to look out for each other and warn each other of, possible dangers or of getting caught.
Well, and we talked about on the show a while back how certain priests there would be like a circle of priests, and they would give the kid the mark, essentially, the like little special cross, and they all knew what that cross was.
That means that kid
that specific cross
could be abused.
So when he's like going around, there's other priests, and the priests haven't even talked to each other, right?
But they know
that
that person
literally
can be
marked.
He's a prey.
Yeah,
right?
He's been groomed. He's been preyed upon.
This makes me so sick.
Right.
Like, it makes me so ill. And then this brings me into another aspect of it. The power dynamic and the psychological bullying that happens within every religion, in my opinion.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So then there's already a power dynamic and a power differential, right? So it's already, that's already easier to find prey because you're the leader. As we talked about earlier, it's just easier access. But then think about this also. There are many religions. I know the LDS religion, the Mormon religion, Catholics do this, other religions really ask their members to confess, to give up sins, to talk about their frailties, their vulnerabilities. And for a predator, when prey comes in and talks about this, when a possible victim comes in and talks about this stuff, it just makes them more vulnerable. And now this predator knows knows the secrets, knows where the bodies are buried, and knows easier ways to get into the minds of their would-be victims.
Oh, God.
They know a lot of information about their congregation members.
Yeah.
Also, think about social status. This is weird, but a priest or clergy doesn't have to have the same social status as the members of their congregation. In fact, many members of their congregation will be on higher socioeconomic playing fields than the clergy themselves.
Right.
So they can have access to people that maybe they wouldn't even have access to in their normal sphere of life, right?
Right.
Also, guilt, like putting guilt on people. They can guilt possible victims into forgiveness, talk about it being God's will that they were abused. Predators also are in a position that is venerated. So predator can often be defended by many in the clergy and in the congregation in the face of the accuser. And oftentimes this happens. Blame Satan. Like that whole, it was Satan did it. Satan made me do it. God. And it sounds crazy, but according to this article,
but it works.
Yeah, Mr. Navarro is saying that this happens all the time.
Yeah.
That people in these positions of power in churches say that Satan had a lot to do with this. Or you can blame enemies of God or enemies of the church. And it's easy to just say that God is on the side of the predator. Thus, further isolating and disenfranchising people that are victims and that have been victims of this kind of violence and trauma.
Yeah.
Also, it needs to be noted that no religion that this author can think of or myself can think of requires or even screens for psychological disorders or mental illness.
Oh, right.
Right. So think about that. Like, here people are leading congregations oftentimes of hundreds, or thousands of people even.
Right. And
we don't know if they're actually even fit to kind of be in that kind of guiding position.
Right.
When you think about other careers where we actually do require people to get psychological evaluations on the regular, for example, law enforcement, police officers, firefighters. Yeah. Think about commercial pilots. I worked for a while with a commercial airline, and I believe I remember pilots having to go in every 6 months to get a physical.
Oh, wow.
To get signed off every 6 months.
And that included a psych evaluation?
I know the psych evaluation was at least once a year.
Okay.
So the other one may have been a physical, but I know that they went in twice a year.
Okay. Wow.
And had to get that checked off if they wanted to keep flying.
Right.
And for example, like a pilot, can't even take like SSRIs or
what's an SSRI?
A selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, like an antidepressant.
Okay.
Probably the most commonly used antidepressant.
They can't even take
They can't even take them. They're not even allowed. Wow. At least this is how it was 5 years ago. It may have changed. Which is crazy.
I'd rather have depressed.
Well, and here's
high anxiety.
I remember talking to a flight attendant once, and I said, "That's crazy that we don't allow them to to take these pills that could actually make them feel better. And this flight attendant, she said to me, well, do you want a pilot that needs those drugs? And I said, do you want one that needs them and can't have them?
Yeah. And isn't going to say boo about their mental state.
Because they want to keep the job.
They have to keep their job. What else are they going to do?
But alas, I digress.
Yeah, okay.
Back to
these priests.
I'm back to these fucked up, dirty, dirty, dirty priests.
Who are leading, like you say, hundreds and hundreds of people, right? And being given access to their children.
Unfettered access in many
exactly.
cases.
And there's no sense of like, oh, maybe we should like make sure that people in these positions are fit to be
to the
there.
contrary, we just assume they are.
Right.
Just because of they've
got the collar.
Because of the calling or whatever the hell it is, because of their position. Mm-hmm. Parents, for example, are even more trusting of authorities, religious authorities. Like they don't even question. So I don't know. It's just something to, I think, be aware of. And once again, I don't want to say that everybody that goes into clergy or, wants to work in a religious background, I don't want to say that they're, all predators. But what I will say, is this, that there is no denying that the profession allows for predators. It covers up their crimes. It covers up their dastardly deeds. It covers it all up.
And it sounds that it's structural. It's systemic.
Yes.
Right. It's how it's been set up, intentionally or unintentionally, probably a little bit of both, and in order to keep letting these men have this access.
Well, and it goes on and on. Like,
right.
And we know you're absolutely right. But we go, for example, in the Catholic Church, part of the reason that a lot of these crimes weren't getting solved, or these priests weren't getting caught, or not indicted. That's not the word I'm looking for. Tried, put in prison. Was because what was happening, and this is protected under the First Amendment of the United States, what was happening was these priests would then go to another priest, confess their crimes, and get forgiven.
Okay.
So then, according to the Catholic Church, that never happened at all. And even if a law enforcement officer came in to talk to the priest that took the confession, that priest cannot talk to that law enforcement officer about what the other priest had said he had done for he or she. Well,
right.
For the most part, probably.
Even if it's committing a crime.
From what I understand, no. They would need a subpoena.
Wow.
And I think that even under a subpoena, I mean, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure they could probably still get out of answering.
Jesus Christ. That's stupid.
Yeah. So, and then what else has happened is then offending priests are just then sent to different dioceses, different congregations, where they start all over again.
Right. Well, Chris, I want to pivot to a story about a church that, I don't know, doesn't sound like it has these kind of problems. Church up in Madison, Wisconsin.
Well, that's a cute town.
I love Madison.
They've got a cute little river that runs through it.
God.
What's that river called?
I don't know.
Somebody send us an email. I love that town. It's really cute.
It's great. Yeah. I'm agreeing with you.
Quit fighting with me. Madison's adorable.
It's amazing. Yeah. So since March, Jesse Schwark and Dylan Bangert have been distributing marijuana to petitioners of the Lion of Judah House of Rastafari.
Jesse
Church.
and Dylan.
I know.
How do I join this congregation?
These scamps. It sounds like you just seek them out and you go.
Okay.
That's all you have
What
to do.
is it, like an edible? Like that they put under your in your tongue or something, on your tongue, like body of Christ, body of Christ?
A little host that's
body of cannabis?
Essentially, they're serving it as a sacrament, yes. In what form, I'm not entirely sure. But the city of Madison is trying desperately to shut this down because technically in Wisconsin, this is not legal. They don't have the recreational pot. I don't think they have medicinal pot.
I'm sorry, I'm stopping here. Going back to the last story, where the First Amendment protects these priests and allows them to be fucking child rapists.
Yeah.
But yet these dudes in Wisconsin just want to help people have a little fun at church.
Yeah.
And they're getting in trouble.
So
I just really want to bring up the hypocrisy of this, the juxtaposition, like the two different poles, right?
Yeah, right.
How the First Amendment is protecting child rapists.
Right.
And the First Amendment then is on the ass of these Jesse and Dylan.
I know, poor Jesse.
All right, I keep interrupting your stories. Go
no,
on.
You're okay. Police have sent the church's landlord a formal notice of public nuisance, writing that the property was being used to facilitate the delivery, distribution, or manufacture of a controlled substance. It's funny. They're going through all these... they're not just charging in and arresting these two, which I find very interesting. They're trying to convince them to just stop doing it. They're trying to strong arm them a little bit and get the landlord to get involved, right? But what is interesting in this day and age is that they're not just running in and arresting these two.
They cannot arrest these two. I mean, it would be a PR nightmare. And first of all, if they arrest these two, then in a year, marijuana will be legal in Wisconsin because they will take this all the way up to the Supreme Court. And what I'm thinking, because they're a religion. In my opinion, they should be able to do this, right?
So we have, from my understanding, we have Supreme Court decisions which do protect, say, like Native American tribes and their use of peyote and whatnot in religious
which is
ceremonies,
great.
right? But our federal government has not cleared a space for non-Native American religious groups,
and that's discrimination.
To use controlled substances in their services. It's just not something that's happened yet, right?
And that's why they're not arresting them, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what their thinking is on that, but it's a fairly conservative court at the moment. So I don't know if this is about keeping it away from the Supreme Court, but I don't know.
Well, or a federal court. Because it would go there first.
Sure. Anyway, I want to get to some of the statements by these two. Tell me if this sounds like this guy's a pothead. This is Schwark speaking. That would be Jesse for you. These things have been blessed since the beginning. We just live life according to life itself. It's what we know. We talk it. We walk it. We are exercising inalienable rights, man.
You are such a dick. Of course you read that like a total stoner. Read it like an executive. Now read it with Mormon voice, Mormon prayer voice.
Well, I was thinking more like, these things have been blessed since the beginning.
I just think you're so mean. You just totally read that like, hey, man.
Anyway, yeah. So they're working hard. They're trying. You know, like people test this out every couple of years is what I've noticed. Probably more often than that, but it shows up in the news, and I see it once every couple of years. And but it never really goes anywhere. It's always just kind of this nice try. Why don't you go over to Michigan? It's recreational. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but then hold on. That brings up a point of privilege. Not everybody just has the privilege to move a congregation.
No, I know, Chris. I know, but like they try it, and it's not legal in their place yet. It will be.
But what about the First Amendment that protects them? I know they're
trying
to
test that. They're trying to make that an issue, right?
I'm just sorry. Like, if we can protect child rapists under the First Amendment, why can't we protect people
who are going to do nothing wrong? They're going to take a nap.
In fact, they're actually saying that this is for their spirituality. I mean, believe it or not, who gives a shit?
Right.
Mormons do a lot of crazy shit for their spirituality, right? Catholics, I mean, it's all bizarre.
I know. And all these guys want to do is eat a bag of chips and go to sleep.
Hey, Jesse and Dylan, I hope that you get to keep your church forever.
I know.
And I hope you just get to smoke out all those people. And I hope you have a great time. And in fact, if any of our listeners, maybe want to join their church or send them some money.
We have listeners in Madison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Is it weird that an atheist podcast could be like endorsing a church? But if it's
the first church of cannabis,
if there is any church to endorse, Frank, this is the one. However, I just want everybody to know that I do not smoke any marijuana. Like
that's an important thing to say.
Don't do that.
Right. Ever. It's never happened.
It did not happen this morning. So my next story is this one. So last weekend on Easter in Sri Lanka, as we know, almost 300 people were murdered.
Right.
By Muslim extremists.
Right.
In a series of bombings. How many bombings do we? I don't even know. I want to say it was like around 10, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And this article that I'm reading from Daniel Politi does not actually talk about how many explosions there were, but most of these happened in churches. I believe most of them were Catholic churches and some hotels. But it does seem like Christians were the targets of these bombings.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, this was just from yesterday, I believe. So, but it was taking place today.
Okay.
So, as of today, Muslim women in Sri Lanka will no longer be allowed to wear face veils in public. Oh, all types of face covering that could hide someone's identity are now banned in the country under an emergency law. So this measure was just imposed just barely 1 week after the 300 people were killed in a series of bombings.
Right.
So my question is this.
Okay.
And I have to be honest, I don't appreciate the burqa or...
Not a fan of the burqa.
Yeah. I don't appreciate face coverings and veils.
Right.
I don't mind the hijab. I think that hijab's kind of fun and cool. But
maybe it's not like as extreme or obvious, but if you're going down the line that I think you're going down, it's still a tool
of subjugation. Yes.
It's still telling women that there's something wrong with a part of them and they have to cover it up.
Yes, and these are my issues.
And it's also turning the responsibility of their sexuality and instead of the men.
The men.
I'm phrasing this wrong.
No, you got it right.
It's taking the responsibility of the men.
Of the men's thoughts and behavior.
Right. And pushing it over onto the women and saying, just cover up because we don't want to have to think about you as a sexual being. Even
though just the actual process of asking or forcing a woman to do this is a sexual... I do think that this is... how can I put this? An objectification, a sexualization.
It's yes.
So
what it's saying is that women... are so tantalizing to men, right? And men just can't control themselves, right? Yeah, it's nothing but about them as sexual objects
or a person.
You're absolutely right.
So it's just saying you are nothing but sex.
Yeah,
and
they'll twist it and they'll say that no, this is about respect and this is about this and about that. It's like no,
there's no getting around it.
Right? Because Muhammad was a pervert.
Well, and coming back to that
who couldn't control himself.
Yeah, and coming back to that first article that I read about the app that is tracking women.
Right.
No, I'm sorry. Like, I just have an issue with viewing women as property.
Right.
As slaves, and that should be covered. That should be. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. But here's the issue.
Right.
In Sri Lanka, almost 300 people were killed.
Right.
Because of their religion. There's really no getting around this right now. Right. These people were killed because most of them identified as Christians.
Yes.
And that they happened to be in places where Christians were.
We're going to be in large numbers, yes.
So this was an attack on Christians. Sure, I will say that. I mean, But it feels to me like this law of banning the hijab, not the hijab, but banning the burqa and other veils and face coverings, it feels like it's a knee-jerk, discriminatory, and punitive reaction.
Yeah.
It feels like it's just saying, well, we're going to get Islam, or we're going to get Muslims. We're going to get back at them.
Right.
This is a way to target them. And I don't feel like that's the answer, because also I do want to point out that, sure, I believe this was done by people who identify as Muslim, but we can't say that everybody who identifies as Muslim feels this way,
right,
or would have engaged in this kind of behavior, because that's nonsense and it's nowhere near the truth. And so, although yes, and you know what, in France and I think a couple other nations in Europe, it is illegal to have your face covered in public.
Yeah,
yeah. And
I don't know how
I'm not
struggle
opposed
with
to that, but
I know I really struggle with these kind of laws, though. I because there's part of me that's like, yeah, you go, France, go for secularism, go for, this is a public space and you need to be
at home if you want to cover
yourself
up
in a certain way.
But I'm sorry, if you
space. We need to be able to identify you.
When I go into my bank, there's a sign that says no sunglasses, no beanies, no hoodies,
right?
No whatever, no face coverings,
right?
So I guess I understand that. Like if I'm running a business, I mean, to some extent, I kind of want to see somebody's face. I don't want to. I mean, I don't know. That comes across really awful when I say that. I can see the idea of asking for people to participate in the public sphere.
Right.
And when you're covering your face, you're not participating in the secular public sphere.
Right.
That's all. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm coming across kind of like a dick.
I don't think you're coming across as a dick.
On the same moment, I don't think it's right for Sri Lanka to have this law that is banning the burqa.
Right.
Because that feels really punitive, and it feels like it's punishing people who had fucking nothing to do with these bombings.
Right. But then you have to ask the question of, doesn't a government, on a certain level, have the right to also protect its citizens, including women who might be being subjugated by an archaic and medieval
is the
dress requirement?
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, to a
it's
certain
unevolved,
extent, right?
It is unevolved, and I don't know how to say that. I don't want to come across offensive, but I believe that the thinking behind face covering is unevolved. I just do.
Well, I think your thinking on the thinking.
Go on. If it's a compliment, go on.
Is marvelous.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, all right. If you guys have any opinions on this or any other topic that we've talked about today, please feel free. In fact, we encourage it to send us an email.
Yep.
podcast@thankgodimatheist.com is the email address. You can also call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Also on Facebook, we have the TGIA Members Only Lounge. Head on over there. Find us on Twitter at TGIAtheist, and the subreddit is also TGIAtheist. Chris,
welcome back.
I've got something that I'd like to play for you and get your reaction.
Is it sensational?
It's wonderful. Are you familiar with a guy by the name of Brian Fisher?
Yeah, I don't like him.
Yeah.
In fact, I honestly think maybe it was the last time I was on, or 2 times ago, we had another Brian Fisher.
It's quite possible.
Quote.
We play him probably 1 out of 5 times is probably Brian Fisher.
He doesn't like the gays. He has an issue with the gays.
He doesn't like anyone.
Oh.
I guarantee you.
I bet he likes Jesus.
My whole thing about him is, and I think it's funny, I don't know if anybody else thinks it's funny, but I like to imagine Brian Fisher as my next door neighbor. And what kind of horror that would be.
Horror.
To have him,
horror.
To have him as a neighbor, right? Or like in the same HOA, right?
Oh my God.
He would be the worst.
The worst.
He'd be reporting you for anything. The rose bushes are not fully blocking the trash cans like they're supposed to.
You know damn well you would take your dog over to his lawn just to let it take a shit over there. I would, and I wouldn't clean it up.
But he would report you so fast.
Well, he wouldn't know. I'd do it in the middle of the night.
No, he'd get a DNA test done.
Oh, and he'd probably have cameras out.
Yeah.
Oh, he'd have a DNA test of the dog's turds. And you know what? Whenever he speaks, because he has a radio show too, right?
I believe so, yeah.
So, yeah, I've heard him speak, and I imagine like veins in his forehead and in his neck just kind of bulging.
Yeah, that's quite possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, on this clip, he's done so much homework and cares so much to be correct and respectful of other people that he's clearly figured out how to say Pete Buttigieg's name.
Wait, how did you just say it?
Buttigieg. I
like to say booty judge.
Yeah, you're not alone in that. I like to just say Buttigieg.
Or is it Buttigieg?
So here's the deal. I've watched a number of different interviews
Buttigieg.
that Pete Buttigieg has done, and a lot of the interviewers will be like Boot-edge or Boot-idge or whatever, right? And he's like, and they're always like, did I get it right? And he goes, it's perfect. He just doesn't make a big deal about it. He knows it's a hard name. He's a total good sport about it. But the campaign promotes Boot-edge.
Did you know that they were calling his followers the Pete Fleet for a while?
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Well, but then I believe it was the Advocate, which is the gay magazine, one of the gay magazines, the fag rag. It made reference to fleet enemas.
Oh, no.
How tacky is that?
That's terrible.
Oh, so he's just... Yeah, never mind. Let's not get into that.
Okay.
Back to this guy.
So, Brian Fisher, and he has a warning for liberals who might want to support Pete Buttigieg.
The question is, what do you do with a guy like Pete Buttigieg? And so I'm saying that sexual conduct is part of the issue. In other words, the Democrats, my partial response to Democrats who make an issue out of Trump's sexual behavior is my first response. What makes you think I've ever approved of his sexual behavior? I've never approved of Donald Trump's sexual behavior outside marriage. I've never endorsed it. I've never embraced it. I've never justified it. I've never excused it. So I don't promote Donald Trump's sexual behavior any more than you do. But realize what you're doing by making a candidate or a public official's private sexual life an issue, then you are telling us that we are justified in making it an issue with Pete Buttigieg. If you do not want us to make his sexual behavior an issue, then you better stop talking about Donald Trump and what he did 12, 13 years ago and in the years before that. Just cut it out. You keep talking about Pete, you keep talking about Donald Trump and his sexual peccadillos, then you are giving us permission to talk about Pete Buttigieg and his sexual discretions.
Please do talk about Mayor Pete's sexuality, because this is a man who's in a committed relationship. He's married, right? Like this is not the same as Donald Trump's predatory behavior toward women.
This is absolutely... that clip is absolutely offensive to me.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know where
It's
to
horrifying.
begin. I don't even know where to... First of all, let me just focus on this. Nobody is talking about Pete's sexual relationship.
Proclivities
And
or whatever.
proclivity, that doesn't exist.
That suggests that he's like who even cares what his sex life is
because
like? But
here's the fucking issue for me. Because somebody is homosexual, they're automatically sexualized.
Well, especially in the mind of a Brian Fisher.
Of a right-winger.
Right.
Because here's the fucking issue. Like, who's to say that Pete and his husband are even having sex? He has no idea.
Yeah.
He has
Exactly.
no idea about what happens in their bedroom.
Two gay aces who found each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has no fucking idea about their sexual behavior,
Right.
but yet here he is talking as if he is somehow privy to their sex life, and that's fucking insane. What we do know is that Donald Trump is a sexual predator.
Yes.
That at least 17 women are currently talking about him being a sexual predator, sexually harassing, sexually assaulting them.
And we have a recording of him bragging about grabbing women by their pussy.
And yet we're not talking about this anymore still.
Right.
Like, it seems like somehow this has gotten a pass.
Right.
But yet this man who is in a committed relationship for the past year or so with this other man, like...
And they're both adorable.
All right. I mean, that makes me so mad. I'm sorry. I can't even say anything funny about this because that clip...
You don't have to.
That clip is just... It's vomit worthy.
Yeah.
Just him saying that if you keep talking about Donald, like it's a fucking threat too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you keep talking about Donald Trump being a horrible human being, we're going to talk about Pete. But what are you going to say about Pete? That he's in a committed relationship,
right?
And
that's what I'm saying. Please do. Please talk about.
Nobody is coming forward with
that
sexual harassment and sexual assault allegations, and he's not talking about grabbing people by the genitals.
He's a boring white man, right? Who happens to be gay. Like he is, as far, like, I mean, who knows? We don't know everything about Pete Buttigieg at this point. Obviously, anything could come out, right? But the man just screams squeaky clean.
Yeah.
Just like, this guy is so straight-laced and so clean and such... he just screams good guy, right? And Donald Trump, all you have to do is look at him and know that he's an old perv.
Yeah.
Like, just look at the man.
He's a creep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the issue
you don't
I
get
have
that orange by being a normal human being.
The issue I have also with this clip of Brian Fisher... Well, I have so many. I feel like I could go on. I mean, it's just a brief clip, but here's my issue also is that him saying that he's not defending Donald Trump's sexual behavior or not interested in it or doesn't endorse it. I think those were the words he used. The fact of the matter is he does endorse it.
Yeah.
Just by endorsing the human being that is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He is complicit in that kind of sexual predatory behavior.
Right. And the reason
he voted for Donald Trump from what I'm assuming. I mean, I wasn't there in the ballot box, but the way that Brian Fisher supports Donald Trump and the right wing, his tribalism with conservative issues, not being able to see past his own nose on these kind of issues, that he did vote for Donald Trump and he does support Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
So for him now to say that he doesn't support, I'm sorry, you can't.
I mean, this is hypocrisy, and this is what the left is pissed off about, is the ridiculous, and first of all, we can go back a couple decades and we can show how the left is not completely innocent of hypocrisy on these issues. But right now, the left is being pretty clear about the fact that what we're pissed off about is the fact that this is the religious right, right?
I know.
that has somehow embraced the most vile human being they ever could have.
They didn't just embrace him; they created him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did.
They groomed Donald Trump. They made him.
Yeah.
They pray to him. They pray for him.
And just so that we are clear, the hypocrisy of the left. Let's go back to the Anita Hill. Hearings, right? Where the left went after Clarence Thomas, right? Big time. Bigly went after Clarence Thomas, and rightly so. And then comes Bill Clinton. And I mean, this was the start, essentially, of the Me Too movement with the Anita Hill thing, right? But the left stalled on the issue because of Bill Clinton. And the right lost their minds about the left's hypocrisy at this point. And rightly so. I mean, I'm looking back and looking at who Bill Clinton was and what he did. I was a kid at the time, so you can't. But I'm not blameless in this whole thing. Like, I loved Bill Clinton, right?
Well, but also, if we look at it,
but now we have to face the facts of who Bill Clinton really was, and I feel like a lot of the left has been trying to recognize this, but nonetheless, we also don't hold ourselves up as the arbiters of what is sexually acceptable in some sort of conservative, limited way in this country. We've embraced people's sexuality, and we've embraced the fact that people can come out as who they are. And I mean, whatever that is, like right now, like we were just talking about the flags that we're going to be flying at work for Pride, and it's everything I could find. I kept telling my boss, okay, so it's going to be 8 flags. No, it's going to be 10 flags. No, it's going to be 11 flags. like,
which is great,
which is awesome, right? And so yes, Brian Fisher, piece of shit. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say on it?
Well, I just wanted to say that. Yeah, and then the Clintons came along, and that's in the early to mid-'90s. That's when we had the Republican Revolution,
right,
which turned everything very tribal, politically speaking. And that happened in the early to mid-'90s, and that's what we're still dealing with. We're still dealing with Republicans, and I'm going to say Republicans and right-wingers. I really am. I'm going to call them out. Not being able to look past their own party, not being able to be bipartisan. Not
the left does the same thing, Chris.
I disagree.
You really?
I really do.
Okay.
I really do. I don't see it. And maybe there is some, but it's not to the same extent.
Okay.
It's not to the same extent. Like, let's just use President Obama for example.
Okay.
He was willing to work across the aisle. They were not willing to work with him.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
And I would even say the same thing with Clinton. George Bush did. I don't feel like that was the case with George W. And it's definitely not the case with Donald Trump.
Right.
So Republicans don't play well.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, we're going to skip emails and voicemails and thanking new donors on Patreon this week.
Is it because I talked too much?
We've run out of time.
You are such a dick.
Thank you, Chris, for talking so much. No, just when Dan's not around, it's usually half the time most of the time I'll just skip that segment. But I do want to make sure that we thank our top donor on Patreon. At the moment, it is D. So thank you, D. So thank you so much for your continued support. And if you'd like to join D and all of our other patrons on Patreon, you can go to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and click on the support tab. That'll take you over to Patreon, to our specific page on Patreon, and you can, pick the level at which you'd like to support the show. And of course, we really appreciate the support, and we couldn't do it without everybody's help. So thank you. Chris.
Oh, yeah, we have to talk about that BYU thing.
The BYU thing.
For some reason, I thought we were done. I was ready to go
Wishful
home.
thinking,
I was like,
Chris.
bye.
Wishful thinking. No, BYU, Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah, owned by the LDS Church. It is, here in Utah, it is just, boy, what a privilege it is to go to BYU. Like, it is just... Wow, you got into BYU?
Let me
that's
also
definitely not my.
Well, let me also
my
just
attitude about
interject
it,
some things right
especially
here.
as a former student.
BYU, I view BYU as an abusive institution.
It is, absolutely.
And I will go into detail as to why I think this. First off, I would just like to talk about BYU even recently. I don't know how recently, but they were still involved in conversion therapy of LGBTQ people, trying to change people's sexual orientation or gender identity. And actually, the LDS Church, from what I understand, is still kind of involved in this and is still working in Utah to allow conversion therapy to still happen.
Right. Even though we were trying to, there was a law.
Yeah, it almost passed.
Almost
was
passed.
just a few weeks ago, really.
Yeah.
And then after some, some closed meetings, behind doors with people who were unknown, the bill changed.
Right.
And so in Utah, actually, there's still forms of conversion therapy which you can inflict upon people who identify as LGBTQ.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's one reason. Another reason is what they call the honor code, which is a strict set of rules that the university has put into place that all students must sign.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you've talked about this before on your show. Yeah. But for example, like you can't like take a test in shorts, and you have to you can't have a beard, even though Brigham Young, who the university is named after, had a beard.
Chris, you can't be unshaven.
Yeah.
It's not having like how like I've got a little bit of scruff today.
No, you have to shave
I would
that.
not be able to take a test at the testing center.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes deeper. Like, for example, if you are a man, you cannot be in the house of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Woman, you can't be in the house of a man.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's beyond a certain line. It's
right.
in the
like you can be in the
areas.
living room, but
yeah.
you're not even supposed to use the bathroom. Like in
if
some
it's
houses,
beyond the line. Yeah.
Right.
It depends on where the bathroom is.
So there is a physical line that that it's just insane. Anyway, and then there have been cases of sexual assault and rape, where the victim, actually goes to the university authorities, and then actually this has happened several times, has been kicked out of the school and had all of their academic credits stolen from them,
right?
Because they were past the line.
Well,
even though yes.
And then let's just briefly talk about their police department. Because like many universities, they have their own police department. Mm-hmm. However, most universities don't run their police department like the religious police in Tehran or in Riyadh.
Do you know recently BYU police tried to become state troopers, and the state of Utah said no.
Yeah. Well, the state has actually, I believe they're in the first steps of revoking their police department status.
Completely.
Yeah.
As it needs to.
Yeah. It needs to just be a security department or a security force of some kind, because of course they would want that. And then have Provo City Police be policing the campus.
Because sorry,
they don't deserve the authority to arrest, which they
if a law enforcement official thinks that drinking coffee will send you to hell, they shouldn't be able to arrest you for a goddamn thing.
First of all, what is that police officer doing? He wants some coffee.
I doubt it. Diet Coke, maybe.
Oh yeah.
And I am not bashing Diet Coke because I love it. I'm just feeding into that stereotype that Mormons love Diet Coke, and they do.
Yeah, they do. Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, anyway, at this most recent commencement at Brigham Young University, so this last Friday, this was the whole department. This was the whole school, right? This was in the Marriott Center.
I believe
right?
so.
Like just their big arena, because the images of it were just. It was. This is the main commencement. This isn't like your little like convocation or whatever that
for
happens
the particular
for your
school,
college.
like the School of Business or School of Social Work.
Exactly. Right. This is for the whole university, and one of the valedictorians. He was the political science valedictorian. His name is Matt Easton. Got up, and after giving, or in the middle of his talk, and after he says some nice things. Talking about, he talks about persons of color and inclusion and how this is basically this is your campus too type thing, which kind of sucks that he has to say that or felt like he had to say it.
But Provo is the third least diverse city in the whole nation. We just found that out 2 weeks ago.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, after these extensive surveys. Two of them are in Utah, by the way. I'm sorry I keep interrupting you. First is Orem, right next to Provo.
Right.
Then Bangor, Maine comes in, I think it's Bangor, Maine, comes in second, and Provo comes in third.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
They have a little banger sandwich there. Anyway. So he gets up, and he says this. It was in these quiet moments of pain and confusion that I felt another triumph, that of coming to terms not with who I thought I should be, but who the Lord has made me. As such, I stand before my family, friends, and graduating class today to say that I am proud to be a gay son of God. And if you watch the video, there's this moment of a couple of people like right around the phone that was filming this moment. You hear a couple little claps like kind of right away. But it's general, like the crowd didn't like rise to their feet and cheer immediately.
Well,
right?
no, because
they were like,
their religion has.
Are we allowed? What's the take of the room here?
Can we actually applaud? Are we going to?
But there's this pause, a pregnant pause, right? And then there's some applause and some cheering, right? It's not a full-throated cheering that's happening, and it's definitely not the entire arena. That would have sounded very different. But there was support in the audience. And so there's a couple things happening here. There's the fact that this would have been unimaginable to me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even just a few years ago, to be honest, at BYU.
I still find it unimaginable. And here, so when I first heard this, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. No, go on. I interrupted your thought.
Okay.
Go.
So there's that, right? And then the rest of it, well, I don't know. I've lost my thread.
I'm sorry. Well, here's what I was going to say. I still think to some extent, because my first thought when I read this article, I thought, and I didn't think this out of the blue. I thought this because I actually know of people that had this happen to them. I know of cases where this has happened. So I read this article about Matt Easton coming out at the commencement ceremony. And then I thought tomorrow's headline would read, BYU valedictorian gets his diploma revoked by university after coming out in commencement speech.
Yeah.
Right? Because BYU, when people break the honor code or do things like this, they punish them. And one way of punishing them, and I'm not lying about this, is taking away academic credits and taking away degrees.
Yeah.
And they've done it. They've done it to people that I personally know have lost their BYU degrees for being homosexuals.
Right.
Simply that.
Right. Yep.
So all I'm saying is that, sure, maybe things have changed, and I doubt they're going to take away this guy's diploma because it would be a goddamn PR nightmare. But what about all the diplomas and academic credits that were lost because people violated the honor code?
Well, those are gone. They're just gone.
They'll never get them back.
I don't think so. I think the BYU, being an arm of the LDS Church, will do exactly what the LDS Church does, which is they don't apologize. As a matter of practice, as a matter of just a standard for the institution. The LDS Church does not apologize.
But can you imagine working 4 or 5 years for a degree, getting that degree, and then getting it taken away because you identify as LGBTQ+?
I would say that this young man has done a little bit of a calculation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which, as the valedictorian, political science, right? Let's just say the university revoked his bachelor degree.
Nightmare.
It'd be a nightmare for the school, and a temporary nightmare for him, because I'm sure that there would be some university somewhere that saw the video, who was willing to, he's the valedictorian for Christ's sake, and take that essentially as his credentials. Right. For continuing his education elsewhere.
But also what we know of BYU is that they don't like to transfer credits. This is something that is true. They don't like to transfer credits to state or other private institutions. That's all. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. That they would give an honorary degree to this man.
Essentially, yeah.
To me, it's just
Right. I know. But nonetheless, so this happened, and it's been an interesting thing, because BYU's stance on homosexuality at this point is that they've stated that you can come out as gay, you just can't act on it.
What does that mean? I don't even get it.
I don't know.
And to what point can you act on it? Like, can you hold a hand? Can you give a peck on the cheek?
No, that's being gay. Being gay.
So you can just say that you're gay, and then
you can say you're gay,
live a lonely life in celibacy.
So I guess the difference is they say that you can be gay. I think all you can do is say that you're gay.
But they don't even call it gay.
Because being gay means that you are going to end up holding somebody's hand, and you are going to, want to date people, right? And that's what they're saying.
Being human generally means that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, being human, part of the human experience is sexuality, and it's sexual expression.
Yeah.
Period.
I know. But they obviously don't don't agree with you entirely on that, Chris. BYU doesn't. Who are you?
That's so weird that BYU and I have a difference of opinion. I have my own honor code, actually, and mine seems to be a little more guided by a moral compass.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I really do believe that. I'm not. I honestly view BYU as a punitive institution, as an institution that just seems like a lot of unhappiness. Right. I know for me, I would be so unhappy.
Right. No, like, and you know, if you're taking your morality from an institution, right? If you're letting an institution teach you its morality, there have been compromises guaranteed that have gotten to that point for that institution and their sense of what's right and wrong, right? Whereas what you need to be doing is coming up with or looking to, you know, other sources where it's strictly about the right and the wrong, and then struggling with some of those difficult issues and difficult decisions that you have to make as far as like your attitude about what is correct and what is not correct, and how you carry yourself and in the world, right? And
spot on,
right? Like, this is not an easy thing, and it's something that everybody alive needs to do, which is wrestle with their own sense of right and wrong,
morality,
and come to a morality that is just and good, right? It is easy to take an institution's teachings or whatever on what is right and wrong.
That's a brilliant take,
and I guarantee you that it has been sullied by their experience.
Of course,
right?
Of course,
and that it is not as, I mean, I don't want to say pure as what you would come up with on your own, but essentially,
no, it is. Well, and here's what I'm saying. Mormons like to say this: by their fruits ye shall know them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe, I'm going to talk about BYU. BYU is punitive and they're discriminatory. And as far as my moral compass is concerned, that is not morality.
Right.
To be exclusive, discriminatory, and punitive, that is not morality. And morality is not about what you put in your body or who you have sex with. It's about how you treat. Yeah, it's about how you treat people.
Right.
And BYU fails miserably.
Right.
They make people feel awful.
Right.
And the LGBTQ people that I know that have come out of BYU have trauma. For
Absolutely.
the most part, have trauma. And I don't know if you know this, but in the fall of last year, a study was done out of the University of Georgia, Athens.
Okay.
By and I think he might still identify as Mormon, but he surveyed thousands of Mormons, from what I understand. And this is a project he's been working on for almost 4 years.
Right.
But the author of this research paper found out that 74% of people with an LDS background who identify as LGBTQ+, 74% have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Dear God.
That's almost 3/4% of people, LGBTQ people with backgrounds in Mormonism.
Wow. Huh. That's sick.
So,
well, I think we should probably just leave it there. If that's not a takeaway.
Cool.
Thank you, Chris. Now you're being quiet.
Here I am interrupting your whole story.
No, Chris, thank you so much.
I got something to say.
Thank you so much for being here today. I always just love hosting with you. You're so much fun. But if any of you would like to join the conversation by sending us some feedback, we always appreciate it. Please send us an email. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com is our email address. 424-666-8442 is our telephone number.
666, I love it.
Find us on Facebook at TGI Atheist. That's facebook.com/TGI Atheist. We also have the Members Only Lounge on Facebook. You can search for it there. We we need to thank Danny and Amy as our moderators on Facebook. They do such a great job keeping the conversation on topic and polite. Also, we need to thank Mackenzie for all of the work that she also does on our Facebook page. Big thanks goes out to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music, and also Gordon Johnston for the use of his music. And thanks to all of you for listening. Thanks again to Chris. Dan will be back next week.
Looking forward to chatting with you all soon again.
Okay, thanks. Bye.